So our topic today is user feedback screen flow. There we go. So just to give you some background on myself, my name is Lynda Kane. I'm currently a senior Salesforce developer for Cerity Partners. It's a financial service company here in the States. I also lead the Cleveland, Ohio developer group. On the slide are links to my Trailblazer profile as well as my LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me either place.
Great.
So the use case for this flow and this presentation is basically a way to give a simple way to give feedback to users that can be found on a range of pages. So I could put it in a specific page, I could put it in the utility bar, I could put it within a specific tab even on a page, but really to be able to collect user feedback on specific things in Salesforce, mostly related to the EI. I want to make sure it's easy for the user to give feedback. I want to make sure it's easy for the admin to set it up. And I want to make sure that we're doing reporting and we're reviewing it regularly, because if we're getting feedback and we're not acting on it, that's kind of frustrating to users. So the basic of this obviously is the admin's going to, make this form available in any given page. The user is going to submit feedback, and then there'll be a weekly report. Really basic. And this really is a very basic type flow. So we need to do some configuration to set this up. We need to create a custom object to store that feedback. We need to create and activate a screen flow to capture it. We need to add that flow to the places we want to collect the feedback. And then we need to create a report, obviously, that's going to come out and add the report subscription. So I'm going to actually switch now to kind of a half screen. So you can see. So I've still got the slides up, but over here, I was in a playground. What happened? Oh, that got it. So I've got a new Trailhead playground. So I'm actually kind of doing this from scratch. So we're going to create the new custom object. Wanted to do this kind of live to show how easy it is and how quickly it can be done, so that giving you slides. So we're going to just really quickly create this new custom object. If Trailhead wants to operate. There we go. So we're going to go user feedback. Plural is also user feedback. I'm confused, but I'm going to check the little box. You should probably add a description if you're doing this for real. I'm just doing this as a practice. I'm going to choose to use an auto number for this. And the reason for that is that way I don't need users to give me a name, and I don't get the Salesforce default of the name and the ID of the record. Usually when I do that, I also change the name of this field. So it doesn't call it name, I call it number, just out of habit. I want to allow reports because we're actually going to create reports. And then I want to launch that tab wizard so I can create it for the admins to be able to get to this data quickly. So I'm just going to save. It will take me to the tab wizard. I've got my tab. I can pick whichever style I want. I'm just going to really quickly choose the bell just to get one. And then I'm going to kind of pretty much make this tab hidden for most users. And then I'm going to make it available only to my system admins. Default on. I'm not going to include it in any existing apps because admins can get it out and confuse users. Not that they'll see it. So my object exists. Great. That part's quick. And then I'm going to add some custom fields to actually collect this data. So I have 3 fields I'm going to collect. One is lets me store like a label for where I'm putting this feedback flow, so that I can inform the users what I care about feedback for, and also so that I know when I'm looking at the feedback, what is this feedback regarding, a rating, as well as room for comments. So 3 fairly simple fields. And all the details are on here. So the first one is just a simple text. I gave it a length of 50. You might find you actually need something longer, but that is kind of preference and where you're using and how verbose you are. And always use descriptions if you can. It helps you later. So this is where the feedback flow is located. Help text if you need it. I'm not marking anything as required, but normally for this one, I would probably say it's required because I want to know where it's going to go or where it was, where we're getting feedback on it for the sake of speed. Maybe. Or maybe it's not going to be speedy for me. Live demos. Never know when they're going to be speedy or not. All right, so visibility, I know the default visibility for now, but keep in mind when you're setting these up, you usually want to set your field level security based on how your users use your system. If you use permission sets and profiles, instead of profiles, obviously you pretty much only want to grant access to through that permission set. And then adding it to the layout, I'm going to let it go in the layout for now. So next one is our rating, which is a number field. So just our number. And we're just calling that rating. A length of 1 because I don't want a lot of extra. And again, description always recommended. And I'm just going to through this again, visibility, field level security for all these in the page layout. And then the last one is our comments field, and we're going to make this a text area long, give people the chance to write a lot. Default length, I'm hoping that will be long enough and that I don't get any novels, though 32,000 characters is pretty much a novel already. You could increase the visible lines if you want to, but I'm going to keep defaults for most of this. Again, field level security, page layout. So that is the 3 fields. Here we've got our 3 custom fields. So finishing touches, obviously you can play with the field layout, flex the page layout if you're going to use that, using that. The other place I would say is I would grant access primarily in our org to our admins and then create a permission set to be able to grant access to the object with create. Probably just create, but read and create access for the object, and then making sure the custom fields have edit access within that permission set to grant to users who are going to provide me feedback. You could also include edit access on the object if you're going to, try something different and present to the users the feedback they already provided on that object if you want them to be able to just do it in the same record. When I've set this up in the past at orgs, we've always done it as a new record each time. So we've got the object. I'm just going to really quickly come in here and modify the page layout so that when we look at the records, they don't look as weird. Yeah.
Just your voice is really sometimes really low.
Right. I don't have anything I can do to change my mic.
Okay.
I don't know if you can turn up volume there.
So we also have some noise, like background. Let me see. Just a second. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that's helped any. Anyway, when I usually do this with comments, I like to have them in a single section laid out. So I'm just going to move that there, and that is not as important to me. So just a quick change to that page layout. Of course, after you build the object, I recommend testing, making sure, the records store, and even testing as a user to make sure they have access. But moving on then to the flow. So the flow is going to be, again, fairly simple. This is, I would call this the, in the crawl, walk, run model, this is the crawl to get user feedback set up pretty quickly. So we're going to have a simple screen flow. We're going to create the records, and then we're going to have a screen flow thanking the users at the end. So we just have to go to where we set up flows, which is process automation flows. It's a new flow, and we're choosing a screen flow once it comes up.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just, I can see it.
You guys see there?
It's just taking its time coming up. There you go.
Which screen you are on right now, Lynda? On the flow screen?
Yeah, on the flow screen. So can you see that?
No.
I can see it.
We are seeing custom object finishing touch.
I'm thinking here.
Yeah.
That latency on your side.
Looks like so. I'm not sure if I can.
You want me to connect here? Hand me the.
She can share. Maybe you share your screen here. Give us a second, or.
But you talk. You might have to closer.
Maybe.
Probably better just. Yeah, guys, switch. Like. Bye. Salesforce.
Okay.
Okay. We're good. Lynda, you can continue.
Okay. All right, so we've got the screen flow. So the first thing I usually set up is my input variable. So I just come over here to the manager and toolbox, and I set my resource variable. I'm going to call this feedback item. It is text. And I'm going to make that available for input. The reason I'm doing that is so when I put this flow component on a given dynamic page, I can specify what I want that value to be for all instances of that flow. So the second thing is I'm adding that screen where I'm going to ask the user for their feedback. I would give it a better label than feedback, and actually in our org we have kind of fancy things that we use on it, but the default configuration is to show the header. I would probably also fix the configuration, in this case not to use the pause or the previous button. And then I'm going to add some display text. To give that, for the instructions for feedback. So please provide your feedback about and this is where I'm going to use that feedback item that I created the variable for. I'm just going to place it right in there. So I want it to definitely be something that describes what we've got. So my text, I can obviously play with the text, make it bigger, play with the color as I did in the example if I want to, bold it. Right, it didn't really change the color because I didn't hit it right. I didn't get the color. I don't want that color. Let's just see. All right, there. Then I'm going to use the slider for the rating in this case. You really have lots of options here. You're just collecting a number. You could use pretty much anything. If you wanted to create the field as a pick list instead with the values, you could do that and then use radial dials or pick list. I kind of like the slider experience for this one. So I'm going to give it my name. I'm going to call it rating. Or actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it user rating so it doesn't match my field exactly. But for the label, I'm going to call it just rating. Or actually, I'm going to put the statement that says, please rate how useful this was, and letting them know that 1 is low and 5 is high. So it'll have that text. I definitely don't want to disable it, and I want to put the range. Obviously, my max range will be 5. My minimum will be 1 in this case because I don't want 0 to 1. I want 1 to 5. And the steps are, increments of 1. And by default, we're just not setting a value so that they start there. Or I could set it at 5, and then it'll start at 5, and they can lower it as they see fit. And then the last thing I am going to add is that comment. So I'm going to come up here and add a long text area. I'm going to give it a label. So label, so please expand on your rating or provide any additional feedback. And I will probably, instead of calling it that, I'm just going to call it user comment. If you wanted to require it, you could do so. I usually require the slider rating at least. I don't think there is a required on here though. So, but you could require comments if you want, but you don't have to. So that gets us the screen to collect the feedback. Next thing will then be to actually write that to our record. So we're just going to add our create records. So we're creating user feedback, or just let me close the toolbox. There. Create user feedback. So we're going to do it manually. It's that user feedback object we created, and then we're going to add in the field. So the rating field on the object we're going to use from the screen this field, and we want the value of it. So it's that user rating field we created. So if I actually click in here, you'll see it's called user rating.value. We're also going to include that feedback item, which is that input that we set up. So this variable, because we want to have that recorded on the record so we know what the feedback is for. And then the last thing is the comments. And we're going to take that from the long text field we added on the feedback screen. So that's the please expand, which is called user comment. And I'm going to fix the API name here because there. All right, and the last thing we're going to do is we're going to thank our users for their feedback through a second screen. So I'm just going to add another screen here. I'm going to give it an easy label. And actually, since I'm going to show the label, I'm just going to put back feedback so it has a consistent label on it. I'm going to configure the footer again to not go back or allow pause. And then I'm just going to add some display text. And this is my thank you message. So I'm just going to say thank you for providing feedback. And again, you can format it any way you'd like, making it bigger, making it bold, giving it some color, centering if you want to do that. And I probably did not catch the exact same purple, but that's okay. So then once you've built your flow, obviously, before I get to that slide, you're going to want to save it and activate it. You're going to want to test it. So this is, give it a nice name so that you can find it. Don't forget to give it a description. You will want to leave this to run in the default mode of user context. Probably don't want to run it in system mode. And then I don't need a progress bar on it. It's one screen, and making sure the API version is recent. And like I said, test. So, run a debug, create the, so say we're going to be on the account page. I could put account page in here.
Hey, Lynda, we have a question here.
Okay.
Lynda, you are you not trying to track who submitted the feedback?
I will know that, actually. So I will show you that on the record in a moment. Okay.
Thanks.
So and you'll see this in the debug, actually, not in the debug, but I'll go back to the object and show you the record. So my connection is slow today. When the screen comes up. So here is, so we're going to say 4, and we're going to say, there are some things that could change, and hopefully a user gives better feedback than that. But we're just testing, and we're seeing that they provided it. We're going to go back to the flow, and before I go to the next part on here, I'm going to show you what that record looks like a little bit. So we got our tab here for the feedback item, and we have the one record. And the nice thing about this is because it's in user mode, the created by is going to give me the user who actually provided the feedback, and the date time is going to get captured. So if I had logged in as a different user, which I don't have a different user in this playground, but if I did, it would record as them because it's running in user mode. So the next thing to consider is where are we going to use feedback? We've created the flow, so that's ready to go. We've got the object to store it. It's going to collect the feedback from the user. It's going to record as, through the user's rights. So we're going to know that they created the record and when they gave it. And we really need to plan ahead. Where are we going to put it? What pages do we want it on? Do we want it in specific tabs? Where do we really want to get feedback? And how long should we ask for feedback? Obviously, you don't want to leave this up forever. Time block when you're getting feedback for something. And then how often and who will be included in feedback. Don't overwhelm your users. Don't put it on every page. That's a lot to ask for. Keep it to only a few places at a time. Maybe move it around as you're focused on creating better experiences for different objects or pages. Make sure you're prepared as a Salesforce team to really review that feedback and consider it, consider the changes they're wanting, or provide training when it's really a user needs training on something. And really determine what you're going to call that space where you put the feedback flow so that what you're asking them for feedback for makes sense, and that both for the users as well as for you when you're reviewing. So next page. So this is about really putting it back in. Sorry. Sometimes I click this too quickly and I'm not getting my thing. All right. So we'll just pull down. So this is really about now putting it in the page. So let's say I want to collect it on the opportunity page. I want to get feedback on the opportunity from my sales staff to see, what can we do better? So I'm going to go to my opportunity page here, to the lightning record page, and there isn't one. Fabulous. All right. So instead, I'm going to do this a little differently to force a record page to happen. So I'm going to come in here to my sales app. I'm going to go to opportunities. We're going to switch to all. This is a fresh playground, so it does have some records, which is great. And I'm going to go into setup and edit page. So once this comes out, depending on how important that feedback is and how much, you know, I want to or not want to disrupt how my users work in the screen. And sorry, some of this is really small. Let me maximize this. Will kind of help determine where I want to put this on the page. So say I want to make sure I'm getting feedback and I really want their attention on it. I'm going to put it at the top over here. I might really want to put it lower on the page to not disrupt them. But in here, I'm going to choose that user feedback flow I created. Where is it?
Can you see that again?
Oh, I think, Lynda, you forgot to activate it.
That would be a problem. All right. So process automation flow. And of course, it's going to be nice and slow to come up again. Okay, now it's activated. I'm going to refresh this really quick so that hopefully it will reload with that flow in there available to us. But of course, by doing that, I get to drag the flow component back over. So I'm just using the regular flow component, putting it over here, and then now my user feedback flow shows up. I'm leaving it at one column. And then for the feedback item here, I'm going to put opportunity page, because that's what my users are probably going to call this. They might refer to it as opportunity record. Use the language that they use is probably the best thing to do. And you're going to, you do not need to pass the record ID, because I'm not doing this specific for records at this point. You may find you want to do that, in which case you are going to have to add a text field to be able to, you know, capture that record if you want to, and modify the flow to do so. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to have to activate it, and I'm just going to make this really quickly the default so that it's there. And so now when I go from to the page, that feedback flow is right here. They can provide feedback. Once they do, it actually shows back how it is. Currently, if I wanted to, I could potentially modify the flow to do a check to see, hey, has the user already provided feedback? You know, I could do a get records based on the feedback item, as well as the user who's running the flow, and then automatically just go to the thank you screen instead if there is already a record. But if I wanted them to be able to provide feedback anytime they like to, maybe I'll just leave it the way it is so that they can give feedback items as things come up for them. So let me minimize this because we are done with the demo part. Well, and I'm not going to show the reporting right now, but that one is also pretty simple to build, but it's a the report type is going to be your object. So you're going to choose the user feedback object. It's automatically created when you create the object. You're probably going to want to group rows by that feedback item. You're going to want to include the rating in the comment to view it. You might want to change the summarization it does to average. Possibly remove the subtotals. They don't make a lot of sense here. Probably want to add some filters. You want all the records, but maybe you want only those created within the last 7 days. And then adding a subscription to it to make sure your team is subscribed so you guys get the report weekly and can act on it or review. If you don't build the report, you could build the report and not subscribe. Just make sure you're going to it often and looking and checking. The nice thing about subscription is you can have it send also only if there really are results. The records equals greater than 0 criteria. And then expansion ideas. So obviously what I built is very basic. You can do a lot more with this. You can add to it. Like I said, you could include the current user's prior feedback so they could modify it if you want to. You could ask more open-ended questions. Instead of just having a single comment, you could ask, hey, tell me what you like about this, or tell me what you would change and improve, in which case you'd have to create additional fields, modify the flow to collect those pieces of data and write them to the correct fields. And over time, you could even do this with AI and a prompt template as well. Not showing that right now, since that is not an AI-ready sandbox. So some final thoughts. Make sure you communicate to your users about that new user feedback mechanism when you make it available to them. Reiterate to them really how serious you are about partnering with them to really utilize that feedback to improve the system and their experience. Follow through on that feedback as you get it. And there is a short 4-page step-by-step instruction document out there on my website for how to build this. That is the link. The QR code here also provides a link, and I will make sure I send this deck to you so that he can share it with the group. And then I just include on here some alternatives for ways to getting feedback. If you don't want to use this method, obviously a chatter group dedicated to it. Having office hours or drop-in style meetings are often helpful. Having a specific email, possibly even using email to case. And this flow we just created, it can go anywhere. It can go on any Lightning record page. It can go on a community if you want to get feedback there and you set the permissions correctly. It can even go in the utility bar and you could collect it as feedback for the app itself. So with that, thank you. And if you guys have any more questions, happy to answer or show in the app, in the Trailhead sandbox I've got.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And I have a question, for the feedback, like the flow, when user input some information there, can they put screenshot or only text-based right now?
Yeah, so Flow right now doesn't provide you a regular component that lets you do rich text to do flow screen screenshots in. I don't quote me on this. I think there's an unofficial SF component out there that will allow you to add in rich text. I could be wrong. Otherwise, it is possible to create an LWC to do so.
You can upload a file.
Yeah, attachments.
You could also include the upload a file and have that attached as well. Yeah, that is a great idea too.
Okay. Any questions? So this is a very creative way to use Flow, internally for sure. And I have another question now related with this. I know you just came back from Trailhead DX, Lynda. So anything you can share with us? What's new and anything you learned from the conference?
So I hit more developer sessions than I didn't even get to a flow session. But I know there are a lot of Apex changes coming with the next release for 67.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that already, with security enforced, that keyword is being deprecated. Instead, you need to use with user mode if you're using that. And the default nature of an Apex class that is normally without a declaration would be today is without sharing, though it really acts more like inherited sharing, but that's an argument for another time in a debate. the default behavior will now be with sharing. So by default, Apex, starting with API 67, is going to pretty much run in user mode rather than system mode.
That's a big change. Yeah.
That is.
Okay. On the keynotes, right? Wise, like, what do you got? Like, do you listen anything about the main on the AI part, like the AI agents things, like how they are going to progress over there on that front?
Yeah, they did have demos of some of the new version, Agentforce 2.0 version. It definitely is even more than it was. Like, it has more access because the integrated MCP controller, though it always had access to the CLI, they had the React, the ability for it to write React apps is coming. It's not even in pilot yet. They did not announce the dates, but they did have demos where you could build a simple React app that actually functions within Salesforce, which was fairly interesting. And then MCP went GA the first day of, actually the day before TDX kicked off. It's a little harder to find those instructions. Like if you're Googling searching for the MCP server install instructions, you tend to get the beta still. I highly recommend looking through some of the TDX stuff for the link to, or going on the developer site directly. But besides the regular things where you can access records, you definitely have different server models. So you can have a read-only, you can have a mutation, which gives you the ability to just update or create records as well as read. And then there's a separate all model where you can also delete records. It always honors the user's access privileges in terms of permissions and field level and object level security. But there is also in beta a DX server class, which gives you access to the metadata, tooling, and data APIs, which was pretty sweet to see demoed. Especially if you want to use it to help identify tech debt or to quickly make changes. This entire flow would be rather quick to build using Agentforce and a conversation.
Cool. All right. Thank you for sharing. I love your background. Pretty cool. All those cool. Okay. Thank you very much for your time and yeah, for sharing with us. I will connect with you after the meeting later and to grab the deck I can share with everyone here.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Bye bye.
Bye. Okay, and we can have a little bit short break, and everyone grab some refreshment, and we will have Kunal get ready for the next speaker. Yeah.
So we're going to see.
And everyone put your name in the bag. We have some swag to draw. One swag, and to draw later after the meeting. Okay. Yeah. Make sure you put your name. Sure.
Yeah, like if we showed somebody the deck, it's like, okay, they'd probably do it in like 5 minutes.
That's what's on my mind as I'm watching this. Like, okay, what is the tool to use to have AI build this for you, and really in the end, would it make more sense to just, I don't know. I mean, just.
But by the time you prompt AI how to do it, you'd have it done.
Well, yeah, no, it's a whole strategy for all of your work, really.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Or does it make more sense in the end? Are Salesforce developers in the end more valuable? Because in the end, if you're going to use AI, you just go
We have to work on the prompt, make sure that's good, to see what it generates.
That's what I,
Check everything, right? And so,
that's what I say, by the time you get AI to do it, you guys know how to code it.
Yeah, come in May. 3 hours meeting. And we will have to discuss all of this. And you participate.
I'm not even involved.
when is the May meeting? Is it set already?
It's set already?
Any.
What's your name in for the, so you can get us at the end?
Yeah, we help you with that. We give away.
We took care of it.
Are you able to see my screen on the meeting?
Not yet.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to.
And it's about.
You probably need to be, oh, okay.
And also AI expert.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't make them as a presenter or something?
But this, I just said
Whoa.
yesterday.
I'm ready whenever you guys are.
All right. It's all yours.
Okay. First of all, thank you everybody for having me here. Today I will be. Oh, actually, can Lynda hear me? Okay. Or people.
I think they are. This is on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
here. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you. So today I'll be talking about mastering Salesforce integration with JWT. JWT stands for JSON Web Tokens. It is a modern authentication system where we can connect two servers and have them interact with each other and share data. It's a reliable and a secure, seamless way to connect, let's say, a Salesforce ecosystem with another external system where there's no human intervention needed. That means no user needs to use a username password to log in into the system. Let's quickly cover the agenda. So first I've got, and I apologize, I should have actually taken a second to introduce myself like Lynda did, so I forgot that, but I'm Kunal Bhardwaj. I'm a delivery director at Ryan Global Solutions. We're based out of New York, and we primarily work with financial services and consumer goods. Okay, now that's out of the way. Let's quickly talk about the agenda for today. I'll talk about why I learned about JWT and how JWT became a part of my life. Look at the anatomy of JWT. Then we'll go over the JWT Bearer Token Flow, and I'll explain what that is. Then we'll get into the fun stuff of actually setting up a JWT token and a step-by-step demo of how we can integrate Salesforce with an external system. Then we'll jump back into some of the security best practices. And what happens if the wire gets compromised? Meaning, what happens if you're sending a package from an external system to Salesforce and that get compromised? So we'll see how that works. And then we'll talk about when to use JWT Bearer Flow or JSON Web Tokens Bearer Flow. Now, just FYI, this is a slightly more technical topic. I will try to go as slow as possible, but if you guys have any questions during the presentation, please, raise your hand, ask your questions. I'll go over things, and we'll make it as interactive as possible. Okay. All right. So why did I learn about JWT? A few years ago, I was working for a company back in Montreal, a Salesforce enterprise customer, and they had an integration with Salesforce and Oracle Cloud. And in the middle, we had Azure middleware. Now, once we went live, the way the integration was set up was using the username password flow. So the integration user in Salesforce had a username and a password, which was shared with the middleware team, which they used to connect to Salesforce. So any data that was coming in and out of Salesforce, the middleware was using a username password. So after we went live, it worked fine for 30, 35 days. And as the policies change, when the profiles and the policies, because it's an enterprise customer, they have compliance, the password reset policies changed, the integration started failing. So I did the next best thing. I reset the password, send it back to the middleware team. They deployed it in production and worked temporarily. 60 days later, happened again. 90 days later, happened again. Kept happening over time. So I thought I had to find a better way. How can I make sure that this does not happen? Also, we were planning to roll out MFA. So once we roll out MFA, naturally, you can't have passwords. So I started to look around, talk to a few colleagues, and that's when I heard about the JWT, JSON Web Tokens, the Bearer Flow token. So that's the history behind how I got introduced to the topic and the authentication method overall. Let's quickly look at the anatomy behind a JSON Web Token. So it has a total of 3 parts: a header, a payload, and a private key. Your header is the algorithm and a type. Now, I will go into a lot more detail as to what an algorithm is, what it does, and the JWT type, but just bear with me for another couple of slides. Then we have the payload. The payload is also, as remember, I talked about authorization and authentication. So this payload contains the information about the user who's logging into Salesforce, right? And I will get into what the ISS, SUB, auth, and EXP is. And the last thing, and the most crucial thing about a JSON Web Token is the private key. This private key, unlike a password, can never be shared. It always resides on your system. The way this JWT token is formed, we take the header and the payload. We first base 64 encode it. Then we run a SHA-256 hashing algorithm on top of it. And then we use the private key to encrypt the header and the payload and sign it using the private key and run an RSA encryption algorithm on top of it. Now, you can use any different algorithms, HSA, RSA, but for the purpose of the demo, I'm using RSA. And if you look at this gibberish line with a few dots at the bottom of your screen, this is what a final JWT token looks like, which we use whenever we're trying to connect to any system. So the first part of the JWT is the header, which separates the payload with this period in the middle. And lastly, we've got the private key, which separates the payload with this period in the middle. All of this is in encrypted text. Whenever it's shared, no one can really decrypt it. So let's quickly talk about the token flow. If I, as a system, needs to connect to Woo, right? I will create, imagine it's a stamp. You know how we have an envelope and we put a stamp on top of it. Whenever I need to send a packet to Woo, I will create a stamp. I will share a picture and send it to Woo. When I send my actual envelope to Woo will look at that picture, match the stamp, and actually can be sure that it is coming from me. So similarly, this external system creates and signs the JSON Web Token. It uses that token to make a post request to Salesforce to get an access token. Salesforce uses the JSON Web Token and something called a public certificate to authenticate and authorize the user, and then return an access token back to the system. Pretty straightforward. Okay, now the fun stuff. Now let's get into the actual weeds of it, and let's try to create a JSON Web Token. We'll create a first thing. We'll create a public key or a private key, public key. Then we'll go into Salesforce, create a connected app. We'll set up OAuth scopes. We'll set up a user, which I already have pre-configured. Then we'll build a JSON Web Token, and then we'll use that to exchange a Salesforce access token, and we can retrieve data from Salesforce. Yeah? Yes, sir.
So let's say you're the Salesforce expert and if you're going into some Oracle database, that's the other side. You also have to be the expert in that other system?
Not really. Not necessarily. We usually have teams who handle their side of the systems and configurations. So we're really responsible of making sure things that are in Salesforce, so like a connected app, they will be responsible of generating the JSON Web Token. They will be responsible of sharing the public certificate with us. We will then store that within Salesforce, and then that's how we authorize and authenticate. Great. Anyone else? Any other questions?
I mean, one thing I'm thinking just for everyone is like one reason why this is relevant like right now is because Salesforce is deprecating any kind of user-based plugin.
Exactly.
As of, I think maybe at first they were saying this year, but they're like, as usual, they're like, a bunch of people complain and say, no, okay, next.
Well, even the connected app is already deprecated. You have to ask if you want to use it.
So even the connect,
If you already have it, you can continue to use it. Otherwise, you have to switch to use the external
Client.
So, and this is really the technology behind the new method of authentication, right?
Whenever there's no human in the middle. So for example, you are trying to access Salesforce, then this is not the technology behind it. It's when two systems.
That's what I mean for integration.
For integrations, whenever two systems are talking to each
This
other.
is the basis for authentication.
Correct.
to use the token instead of that user.
I'm just trying to tie this together to one reason why I read that agreement.
Yeah.
Because
It is good in how to connect and change the user first.
this is a lot of the technical detail. But this is what we're all going to have to do if we have integration.
Absolutely. Any systems, yeah.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So let's say the other system, the Oracle system is your ERP or wherever you keep all your financial records, and you're trying to bring that into Salesforce. Is that an example of when you would use this?
One of the examples. The main example or the main reason why would you want to do is, let's say, it could be any system. It could just be a middleware, right? That's just sitting and trying to manage traffic or manage data, right? And that needs access to Salesforce, or rather, Salesforce needs access to another system. Now, you can set up a username password for the integration user that we set up in the Salesforce. Instead, here, we're not setting up a username password because one, it's less secure, right? If the username and the password gets stolen or someone gets in the middle, like a man-in-the-middle attack, and reads the packet, you lost the username password. Until the password gets changed, someone has access to your Salesforce. Here, and I'll talk about the benefits, but basically it's the most secure way to connect two systems. When the middleware or Oracle or whatever external system have you wants to connect and share data with another system, be it Salesforce, be it anything else, they should be able to communicate with each other based on tokens instead of passwords. And once we actually, I'll do the demo, it'll start to become a little bit more clearer.
This is app-to-app integrations, server to server,
Server to server.
open channel info, and you don't have problem with private password.
Yep.
But I also want to say that you can have integrations, especially if no one's really paying attention very much, where they've set it up so that the password does not expire. Like they gave that integration user the permission to, user password does not expire. And so it's not breaking the way that his was, but it's still going to end of life. Like they're going to stop the ability for you to use that because it's not secure.
Yeah.
And they're going to say you have to change the way integrations work.
Exactly.
Might be working now, but it's not going to work forever.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been trying to do that since 2023, to be fair, like
Yeah.
3 years now, but it just keeps pushing back, and eventually they're going to do it. Let's see when. Okay, so let's get into the demo, fun stuff. So bear with me just while I navigate some of this slides here. So I'm just gonna quickly, well, before I move that, I'm just gonna do this. And okay, so first steps first. Let's create a private key. If you remember, private key is something that never leaves my server. It's always something that's close to me, close to my heart, stays with me forever, doesn't leave. Okay, so I'm in my folder. As you can see right now, this is my my folder here, and I'm going to be using an OpenSSL. So OpenSSL is a platform where you can go and generate private keys and public certificates. Okay, now a public certificate or a private key can be self-signed. That means you own the key and you sign it, or you can go to Certificate Authority, CA, and have them sign your private key, which makes it a little bit more authentic, but it's not always necessary. So I'm going to go and I'm going to use this command. It says open SSL. Let me see if I can. There we go. Okay, I hope that's more visible now.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is open SSL, generate using an RSA encryption algorithm, and give me a private key, which is 2048 bits. So 2 KBs basically. And this is the name of the file. So I'm going to hit enter. And as you can see, there is a private key got generated in this folder here. The next step is to generate a public key. Now, private key, like I said, always remain in the server. Public certificate is what we hand out to everybody else. It's like the picture I sent to Wu about the stamp that I was going to put on my envelope so he can compare. And he can use that to decrypt the message or the JWT token. I keep saying JWT token, it's really JSON Web Token. I should have said JSON Web Token or just JWT. I don't know why I keep saying JWT tokens, but bear with me there. Okay, so now let's create the
Question.
Yeah.
The private key lives on the server which makes request.
Yes, correct. Never leaves it because we generate the JWT or JSON Web Token using the private key.
Okay.
So next step is to create a certificate. So again, we're going to write an OpenSSL request requesting a public certificate using the private key. So private key.pem is the name of the file that I use to generate the private key. And I'm using that to create a public certificate. And if you look at here at the end, it says days 365. Now you can create this public certificate for you can set an expiration date, right? Right now I'm setting a 1-year certificate expiration date. You can set a 6 months, 3 months. It's up to you, or 10 years, doesn't matter. But it's nice to have a smaller date or a smaller number of days as to when this public certificate will expire. Okay.
I
So
thought there was something about, is that a different certificate? Something about self-work limiting the time.
yeah, that was another Oh.
Taking the time.
No, there was they
You have to scroll now. It was external signed app. You have to reduce the time and you must change the certificate.
Yeah,
they
certificate rotation is
Yes.
what they are forcing.
If you can still use 360. External.
Yeah, but you can use whatever time it is because they don't check it.
You're right. Recently, they did send a release note saying that they are trying to change some. Uh, I can't remember. It's not coming to me. But you're right. They recently changed some certificates, which they rolled out for all the orgs in. Yep.
Oh, that's a DNS record.
A lot of
February or
a
March.
lot of security change.
Yeah.
In the past couple months after the incident happened
Mhm.
last year.
Yeah.
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 That's why.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Like some of the app integration in our work right now keep breaking because every time like they are implementing some like a new provision has to be applied, we didn't get the notes. It's just breaking, and we have to find out like afterward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, a lot of changes coming because hackers are becoming smarter and smarter. They're finding very unique ways to get behind the systems.
Yeah.
There is new AI.
Oh, yeah. My thoughts.
An hour. That's an hour. Like every hour.
All right, so we're going to use this command in 365 days. Obviously, is the expiration date of the public certificate. I recommend 6 months to a year is a good time, and then after that, you can rotate your public certificates. You just have to upload them into the server, which we're going to do right after this. So let's create that. I'm just going to move this up here. It's going to ask me a couple of questions. So country is Canada, Ontario, Ottawa. These are not required though, so I'm just filling it out. I work for Orion Global Solutions, Salesforce. This is the only field that is required, common name. Okay. And if I go back into my folder, as you can see, we have a public certificate. Now I'll just quickly.
Is there limit? How many times you can reuse this?
No, there's no limit as to you can send the same certificate to every existing application out there in the world. Doesn't matter.
How you track where it is?
Well, it depends. It's on you how you track it. If you're, let's say, if you're using it towards Oracle, you're using towards a middleware. Doesn't matter because public certificate is like a card, right? You have a contact card.
Fine. My next question. Fine. Then get to the location. Then you need a new one. How you know where?
Well, you got to track
more
it.
People.
So you got to track
More
it.
servers that needs to receive.
Either you track it or you wait until the integrations fail, and then they will come to you and say, hey, certificate failed. Give me a new one.
Yeah, this is your opportunity. You're young. Nothing in place to help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're gonna get another.
So just quickly peek at what a certificate looks like. So I'm just going to open that in a text editor. As you can see, it's technically just a whole bunch of random characters. Nothing really in there that someone can really read through and figure out what it really means, right? So I'm going to close that. Okay, so now that we've done the first setup, we have a private key, stays within our servers, public certificate, we share it with every practical application out there. Okay. Next step is we go into Salesforce. So just for the interest of time, I've already set up a user, and I'll just show you what that user looks like. So it's an integration user. And I recently learned that Salesforce is becoming a little bit more finicky about how we can assign permission sets to specific profiles. What I learned was if you're setting up a Salesforce API only systems integrations, you cannot, one, assign any random sort of permission set to this profile. One way to get it done is to assign a permissions set license assignment that allows you to assign a regular permission set without any license to a profile that is integration only. So if I were to, because if you see here, I assigned this JWT permissions assignment to this user. If I hadn't given the permission set license assignment, Salesforce wouldn't let me do that. So it's a slightly annoying, but I think it's a more of a security aspect why they did do that.
Still use the license.
That's a license.
Still use,
Yeah.
Still use out.
Mhm.
Integration.
Yep, it's the integration license.
Yeah. But so basically, and this is something people, I'm not sure people might not be aware, but when you're creating a risk test, it asks for this which license, but you don't have to fill it.
You don't have to, yeah.
You just don't fill it in.
But even then, it won't let you assign it to a integration user unless you have a Salesforce API integrations. So I'll show you something, and let's see if actually. So I'll delete this.
I guess when I created it, just
User license doesn't allow permissions. So I assigned it to I assigned a permission set to it, which allows it to read accounts. And as soon as I remove this, it says, okay, your user doesn't allow permission to edit accounts.
Yeah.
So then I have to go back and assign it. Otherwise, my integration user wouldn't be able to read accounts. So, well, it didn't let me delete it, so it's still there. And so is my permission set. Okay, this was one thing I wanted to bring up just for you guys. It doesn't really have to do anything with the topic. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a external client app. External client app. I'm just going to use a random email, and we're going to enable OAuth. For a callback URL, I'm just going to take this URL. Doesn't really matter, but it's a required field for the client app. Now, for OAuth scopes, right, we should be very careful how we set up these OAuth scopes. Sometimes I've seen people just give full access without thinking, right? That's not recommended at all. You should be really specific, right? So the only two things that are really needed for majority of the work that you do with integrations is manage user data via API, because it lets you access Salesforce data. And the second thing that's non-negotiable is you got to have this is perform requests at any time, because this will allow the external system to request for a token at any time. Let's say you've got a late night batch job running and extracting data from Salesforce or dumping data into Salesforce. You can't have a specific time where they can make a call to Salesforce. You got to let it be 24/7. So that allows you to have the system talk to Salesforce 24/7. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to enable JWT Bearer Flow. And this is where we load our public certificate. That's how Salesforce will be able to decrypt the JSON Web Token that it receives and figure out whether the system is actually who they say they are.
But the public key is given to the other system.
Yes. So in case it's like that picture I sent to you.
Yeah. So this is for external, right?
This is external so that someone can reach out to Salesforce telling them, hey, I need access to your accounts.
Yeah. And they need this public key.
Yes, they need this public key.
Right.
Salesforce would need this public key to authorize and authenticate who this request is coming from.
Say public session.
Yes.
What's different between public key and public session?
Same thing. I think I use them interchangeably. Yeah. Because I use private key, so maybe I'll just use public key versus public certificate, but they're the same thing. Okay, so I don't think anything else is necessary here, so I'm just gonna go and create this.
You uploaded? Yeah.
Yeah, I uploaded the certificate. I can show you here. So we've got this OAuth here, and then I've got the everything that I filled out during those questions that were asking me while I was creating the public certificate. I uploaded the certificate. It's right here. Next thing I need is the consumer key. So I need to quickly get the consumer key. which is going to be in the payload. So let me just see, because it's going to go into my work email. Let me just quickly get that number.
This is Salesforce connected up key.
Yeah, it's going to, yeah, exactly.
Just telling others. Just to differentiate. Now you on Salesforce side, you need to have peace on Salesforce side that you're going to give on other side, be able to know which keys are going to be used to compare. So it's exchange between two servers configurations that need to put
Definitely.
in order for this.
This external app created again on the site which you do request.
So say that again.
External app we
Uh-huh.
created now.
Uh-huh.
On which side of
Salesforce.
Salesforce.
no side which does request or
Which
receives
the request.
Yeah, but can the connected app is also on the side which receives request.
So connected app is allowing another external system to talk and send messages to Salesforce, right? So that's what the connected app is used for.
Yeah.
So that's why the connected app is created in Salesforce to be able to
Can I
accept
just
it.
explain? That what we had connected apps before, this is also.
Yes, but connected.
This is now called external connected app. They're gonna emphasize that this is something for external.
Okay. The external connected app is successor of connected app.
Correct.
Okay.
Name changes constantly, yeah.
That's external client. At least it's a little more direction.
Yeah, they keep changing the names. Okay, so next thing we want to do is set up some OAuth policies. Now, this is also a critical thing, right? We don't want all users to self-authorize. We want to set some guardrails around it. So, because this external client app is only going to be utilized by an external system, which is technically my Salesforce API only systems integration profile.
Mhm.
You can also give access via permission set, which is obviously an option that you get, but I'm just going to use my profile and I'm going to hit save.
Is it, in your opinion, what's the best practice?
So because it's a system and we already have a profile and we need a profile, so either
Salesforce is more just fail.
true, but I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon because it has been.
This is what's my take. You have profile that's minimum access to any integration. You can. It's like minimum access to them. And then in permission sets, you create separate permission set for your connected app that you're giving, then you control exactly. Nobody can sneak in and leak data because you use universal profile or universal permission set. I'm trying to implement this minimum privilege.
Yeah, and
to my client, it's messy, but so they are. This is the only way to be sure that you're controlling what they are accessing.
Mhm.
And now they applying same game to agents, agent force agents. You need to have user use to run it, and then this user needs to have access just for things that this user needs to do the job of the agent. Otherwise, you will send out outside to LLMs more things than you expect.
100%.
No, so still, profile is not going away anytime soon.
No, they are not going away.
Yeah.
The way how they are managed is because the way how you deploy them from lower environments to higher environments is very messy. Not good. They are splitting them to the permission sets that are easier to manage.
And behind the scenes, a profile is technically in a permission sets data table in the database within Salesforce. So although it's kind of two separate things, but behind the scenes, it's kind of similar.
Okay.
Sorry.
They are separate methods. Even muted sets are not same method. They are totally, they get same structure, it's not private, they're separate.
No, I think if people are starting to move towards permission sets, you're going to get the additional security, and you'll be there when they say day X comes.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of starting to try to migrate to that best practice.
And to answer your question, for this particular case, right, we're using a profile, but let's say we have another integration user where I used minimum API only. So either I can use that profile, or I can take a permission set that's assigned to that particular user and move that permission set into this access. So both permission sets and profiles are available that can access this particular client application.
And I have a question. Best practice is to have multiple integration users and give each user permissions only needed for that particular integration. So if you have multiple integration users, will they all have the same profile and be different in permission sets? Will they use the same token?
No.
The same certificate?
So the certificate is in Salesforce. If there are different systems, they can choose to use the same public, or they can actually, okay, let me take a step back. So if there are different systems, they do have an option to create their own JWT or JSON Web Token, right? Now, when they have different JSON Web Tokens, they need different client apps, because the client app can only store one public certificate, right? So if they end up choosing to use the same JSON Web Token, then they can all use the same external client app. They can still have their separate users, which we can include here with the permission sets or the profiles, but they would need to have separate users using the same client app, or if they have separate tokens, they need to have separate client apps. Same token, same client app, multiple users, separate tokens, separate client apps, separate users.
And if we will go with one token, so then this user is supposed to have different profiles.
They can have the same profile if their integration
external connected up.
They can have the same
profile.
API or integration profile, and you can then leverage permission sets to manage their access, because the profile, this integration profile, does not give them access to any data within Salesforce whatsoever. Doesn't give them any information, like not even the standard objects. You have to give it, like you said, right? The permission sets are now how they manage data. Profiles are no longer, they're just there because it's in their
If I cannot hear it, when you say user, what are you defining as
User record.
when you have up-to-up integration, you don't have user.
You do. I created the JWT, right? Because that's how
you
it
have user for all the clause.
authorized, right? How would you know if an external system is coming in? Remember, we created this user that I showed you, the JWT.
Yeah, when you're making JWT, okay, you need to use user at this point, and never ever afterward.
Right, right. But the user still needs to exist in Salesforce and be active, right? Because otherwise, how would Salesforce know what level of access do I need to give to this external application without a user? The password is not required.
Isn't this policy what you're giving access to?
Yeah, but then again, I'm selecting a profile here, and a profile is assigned to a user. So this is only allowing this external client app to give access to this client app to a specific profile. That means if, let's say, tomorrow you have an external system that is using a user who's a system admin with a system admin profile. Mhm.
You were user. You want to ask question?
No, I want to explain. It's to narrow down the possibilities in the user, because in the JSON Web Token, you write which user you use. So in your Salesforce, this user must have this profile, and you can write whatever user you want. If it's not in this profile, it's not accepted. Okay. It's only to narrow down which profile can be used by this external client app.
Okay.
So further in this configuration, you actually specify the user.
No.
You can further down in here use. There's a place, I did it yesterday.
But my question is something else related to it.
Uh-huh.
You have user that is active today that you use with your security token. And this user that is terminated, so somebody deactivate this user. All your JWT will stop working.
Yeah. See, because when someone's accessing Salesforce, how would Salesforce know what level of access to give? Let's say you have an external client.
Because it knows what user and what profile was underneath and was there. Does it expect user to be active is my question.
Yeah, definitely. Because if the user is inactive,
this is point of failure. Then you get rotation if you don't have a dedicated user that is forever active.
you have to have a user active in order to access any data whatsoever from Salesforce. Without that, I mean, it's their model is based on licensing and having user access. That's how they manage their authorization protocols. Without a user, they cannot know. Like you have a bank, right? Banking app. You have a user. If you stop using that bank, your user get deactivated. You cannot no longer access that account. Same thing with Salesforce.
Okay, I agree. I am accepting your answer.
No, we can still talk about it later on. It's okay. Okay, so application allows here the client app is now letting only the API integration profile users. This could be 10 different users to access the same application. Now we're set up the selected profile. Okay, so okay, let me just gather my thoughts of where we are. Okay, I think we have set up everything we needed at the profile level is there. I have the consumer key. Okay, now the fun stuff. Let's set up the JWT or the JSON Web Token. For that, we go into this website called jwt.io, and it allows you can obviously use, if you're using another system like a middleware, you can code all of this in Python or any other language who does exactly this for you. But for the purpose of the demo and my coding skills, I'm just going to use this app. And if you see, is it visible, right? Or can we now? Okay. So remember, I was talking about having multiple encryption profile or
Maybe use the light mode, like on the.
Oh yeah, you're right. Let's do that. Okay. Yeah, I think that's better.
Yeah.
So remember, I was talking about using multiple or having multiple encryption algorithm. So we have a ton of these, right? We have HS256, 384, 512. We're using the RS, and this is critical because if you remember, when we set up the private key, we used GEN RSA. If we end up using GEN RSA when we're creating the private key, and we end up selecting HS, then encryption is not going to work because the algorithm is different. How the private key was encrypted versus how we're trying to decrypt it, it's going to be different. So the JSON Web Token is not going to generate properly. So be mindful. One of my colleagues actually did that mistake. So be mindful that you pick the same encryption algorithm when you're generating a JWT token. Okay, now because we talked about it during the anatomy of JWT, this is similar to what we have. So the first things first, we have our header, which is the ALG, which is the algorithm. So the encryption algorithm type is JWT. So that's the only two things we need in the header. Now, moving on to the payload. So here, I'm just going to quickly copy a few things. And let me be very clean about this, because one slight change can derail the entire JWT token. Okay, the first thing, this is the issuer. ISS stands for issuer. This is the consumer key. That's how Salesforce knows whenever I get a JWT token, which external client app do I need to go and verify. So the authentication happens here. So I'm going to copy my consumer key and I'm going to paste it right here. And you see on the right side, as soon as I'm adding or removing some stuff, the JWT or JSON Web Token is updating. It's recalculating and rehashing and re-encrypting all that information. Next thing we have is the subject. For that, I'm going to use the username. And to your point, that's where the authentication is really being taken care of. That way, Salesforce knows who is trying to access data within my system. So this is the username that I created. And I'm just taking the username for that JWT integration user. So far, there's no password involved, right? So, well, it's going to be the same thing, but I'm just still going to paste it here. Next thing is the audience. Audience is technically just your URL. So if you have public domains enabled in Salesforce, you can use the domain like you see here. If you don't have the domain, then you can use login.salesforce or test.salesforce. It should work. Second, or lastly, we have the expiration. Now, this is the most critical part, except the private key in a JSON Web Token. Why? Because this determines how long this token will survive, or when will it expire. And this number doesn't really mean anything right now, but let me show you what it really means. So if we go into the epoch converter Unix timestamp, it takes whatever real time you have right now, and it converts into a time that can be used in the JSON Web Token. So if you see this, this is the right now with according to GMT, this is where we are. If I move this to 25th, the number will change here. I can also copy the one that I already have, and it expires April 29th. I would highly recommend to keep your JSON Web Token for a 1 to 3 minute expiration time. Because even if someone takes the token, before they could really do something with it, the token will already expire. Unlike a password, once they have access to your password, they can unlimited access to everything, which we'll get into later. But keeping a expiration date or expiration time rather on your JSON Web Token gives you a lot more security. Okay, so for now, for the purpose, this is not a demo or this is not a real production. So I'm just going to keep it to tomorrow, and I'm going to copy that and move it back into my JWT. Lastly, I'm going to take the private key that I generated and copy paste this. Oh, you see, even if I copy this, this will change the JSON Web Token. So I have to be very cautious that I don't include any additional spaces in my token, because if you see this token, if I even add a period, the token changes, right? So I have to be very cautious that I don't mess up any additional spaces or a comma or a single character, because that will just derail the token. So it's very delicate. Okay, So we created the private key and public key. We set up the connected app. We created the JSON web token. Now it's time to actually connect. So I'm going to go into Postman, and I'm going to copy this. I'm going to open Postman. And Postman is basically my external app, which is trying to connect to Salesforce. So first things first, I'm trying to get the access token. So I don't think I can zoom here. Is there a way to zoom? I don't think there is. But yeah, hopefully you can see this. But as you can see, there's nothing in the parameters. There's nothing in the authorization. I've got just a content type in my header, and I've got a grant type, which is JWT Bearer, and an assertion. The assertion is basically the JSON web token. So I'm going to copy and paste the web token here, and this is my OAuth token. And now if the demagogues are blessing me, we should see an access token, right? So do you guys say hit it?
Yeah.
Okay. And there it is. So we got the access token. Now we take this access token, or the full access token, rather. I copy that, and I use this token to actually make a call to Salesforce and try to get this account with this ID. Or if I have to perform any other operations, I could do that. And once I do that, I was able to get the entire customer information. So with that, at least the demo is over.
You're doing this with JWT.io?
Yeah, the token I created was with JWT.io. So I used the header, the payload, and the private key that generated this token. And then I used this token and went into Postman.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. So then the Postman is basically acting on external. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. So you guys can wake up now. Just kidding.
Good on timing. And I have a question. So
yeah.
So on the integration part, like, so how do you compare this method with like people using MuleSoft to do the integration on external system?
MuleSoft doesn't change anything. Well, the one thing actually, my bad, I'll take that back. MuleSoft does change it because MuleSoft has a connector with Salesforce.
Right.
Right. So they have already embedded all of this in the background that we don't get to see.
Yeah.
We just get to see authenticate, authorize, good.
Correct.
Works well because
all the tokens are handled by
the connector.
MuleSoft connector.
Exactly.
So we don't need to do this kind of like all the token generation.
Not at all.
Stuff.
It's when you're going outside of the
Yeah.
Salesforce ecosystem.
Yeah.
When you're, let's say, using Azure middleware
Right.
or any other
custom
middleware, Google middleware.
Yeah.
That's when this type of frameworks come handy.
Absolutely. Okay, I see. And this is native supported by Salesforce, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I just did that with Salesforce, so no issues. Salesforce has to support it because if this is the framework that is widely accepted by all the applications. So, and I don't think there's anything better for server-to-server communication other than a JWT.
Yeah.
And I'll show you something. Let's say I go back and I update the date to, let's say, yesterday. Okay. So that means my token is expired.
Yeah.
Okay. So I take that and oh, my bad. I got to go back into JWT.io, paste my token, and then this is my new token from the expired version of it, the time, right? And let's go back into Postman and try to get the access token. So I'm going to remove that. Oh, I'm going to remove all of this, and then I'm going to paste the new token, which ended with PIQL. That, right? That's the new token that we generated with PLIQ. Right. So, no tricks up my sleeve there. And hit send. You see, expired authorization code. So even if you're, let's say the token gets it by, someone intercepted the package and they got the token, sure, they could use it for another 2 minutes. After that, it's gone. Can't use it after that. Another thing, if I deactivate the user, right? Let's deactivate this and go back into my, let's get a better timestamp, right? Because we don't want the timestamp failure. So let's take that and let's put that here and get this new token ending with CWZG. I hit send, invalid grant, authentication failed.
Because the user is
Because the user
deactivated.
deactivated. So it doesn't match this claim, right? Because Salesforce is taking all of this and comparing it to the public certificate that it has stored on the client app. Now, if any of these things slightly change, it's going to reject because the token's not going to match.
Yeah.
Okay, I know I'm hearing on time, so I'm just going to skip the best practice because I think you guys have already heard that, and also this portion because I was talking about say username passwords. Someone intercepts your message, username password's gone. They have unlimited access. And another thing, there's no scopes when a password is gone because the scopes are only used for OAuth, not for username passwords. So you can't have any scopes. So that's why with JWT, you definitely need when you're interacting servers together, right? Token expires in minutes, 1 to 3 minutes. The token's non-reusable. Someone who has a picture, the picture that I sent you about the stamp, you cannot use that picture to generate a token. You would need the private key to generate the token. And someone having the public certificate can only decrypt it using the certificate when someone reliable is sending the message to Salesforce or any other external system that has the public certificate, right? So public certificate alone cannot forge the token. And private key never leaves your servers. So that's that. When to use JWT, this is important, right? For ETL tools, right? When you're trying to load data, your middlewares, any system that is just interacting with Salesforce that has nothing to do with UI or UX of Salesforce, that's when you use JWT. CI/CD pipelines, right? Gearset, Copado, all these things behind the scenes use JWT. You can set up using JWT. Any integration where there's no human available. Now, where not to use it? Obviously, when there's user experience included, when you're actually a human is logging into Salesforce with a username, password, and the need to have the ability to see Salesforce UX. So for those, and then also for long-lived sessions, those are the not the right cases for JWT. And lastly, questions.
Salesforce CLI, does it support?
Yeah, it's based on that, like the CI/CDs that I was talking about. Yeah, CLI is for VS Code, right? CLI is for VS Code. So they could use because they use a browser authentication, right? If I'm not wrong. So because they use browser sharing cookies, if you're logged in into the browser using UI UX, and then you have VS Code, then you can connect CLI through that. So that's slightly different from what I have here. But I don't know maybe what they use behind the scenes. But yeah, I think it's different because they use session-based cookies. As you, yeah, your session's gone. Ideally, you should be able to not log in. I haven't tested it. I should test it. I'll let you know later. I was thinking, yeah.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for being on the yeah, Peter, you get some comments.
You wanted to show a little bit about the man-in-the-middle attack, which is still possible?
I haven't prepared it, but yeah, I mean, going back to this slide, like man in the middle, right? So whenever we're sending a packet from an external system to Salesforce, now if someone just, it's like two people talking, someone puts their ear in the middle and try to listen to them, it's similar, right? Man in the middle comes in, they fetches the packet. Now they have the token. So if we were sending a username password across the packet, then now I have access to the username, the password. I know they're trying to access Salesforce, so I can just go and log in. And if someone hasn't set up API enabled, then I can go in and log in. But I can still use the username password to use an integration with an external system. And Salesforce will not prevent me until the password is changed. So that could be 60 days, 90 days, setting up forever. Don't change, don't expire the password. So I have forever access to the system. But here, if a man in the middle attack happens, they take the package, they've taken the token. Sure, take the token in a matter of a couple of minutes. The token is going to expire. Sessions all gone. Now you can't access anything in the system. Does that?
Yeah, it's when you monitor, if you break in a different system and you're logging all the network traffic, then you have to get out the traffic, and it's taking time. So you have the data, you can read it, all the information in the JWT Web Token, because it's not encrypted, only signed. So you can read all this information, but it's expired already. So it's too late. With the old version, you have all the information. You have the consumer key, the private key, its user, password, everything you need to send it again and get a token. That's why it's so important to do.
Very good.
But what you see here is that it's only signing in one direction. Salesforce also allow zero trust Jason went off. But you need to send a ticket to Salesforce to activate. In this case, you have signing and encryption in both ways. So
private and public.
Yeah, the JSON Web Token has the header information and the payload. It's not encrypted; it's only base 64.
Yeah,
and it's signed. When you have the zero version, then all of this is also encrypted again, and you send it to Salesforce, and you need also a private and public key in Salesforce that it can decrypt it.
So do you share the public or the private key with Salesforce?
No. You have two private.
Okay, so Salesforce stores theirs, the external system stores theirs, and then you use that to decrypt the message because you created the message using that private key. Is that so?
Yes, because when signing, you sign with your private key. Mm-hmm. When you encrypt, it's you're using the public key on the other side, and he can only decrypt with a private key. And this version, Zero Trust version, is one-to-one connection.
One-to-one connection.
This can be used with multiple connection. Zero Trust is only one-to-one, and it's not activated by default. Because a little bit complicated.
Yeah, certainly. Even this was complicated to put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I'm seeing that this rotation of this certification is paying.
Yeah, I mean, if you have tens of thousands of systems that you need to share this certificate with, and you have to rotate it, true. But then it becomes a security aspect too, right? Like you change your certificate.
Good thing you need to hire people to do this, pay their salary, they can have something to eat. Yeah,
that's how economy at work.
Yeah.
But what you saw, he has a private key only on his side, and the public key he created put on the other side. You don't need your public key when creating the JWT.
Yeah, you just need private.
You can create new public keys all the time, and with the client connected app, and when you make a package with it, you create the public key you put on the protection org. Okay. And if you have create packages and you have different customers, you just rotate on your main production org. one certificate and it's valid for where it's installed. That's a good new thing because connected apps, if you have packaged them, the certificate is in the package. And if you change it, it breaks. That's horrible.
So I have a question and an experience. So with the external client app, when you refresh the sandbox, you connected app to come across. The external client app, it won't come across. The refresh doesn't bring any of that information across. You have to rebuild each time. That's a fact.
If you can package it, not. Then
Yes, but if it's not packaged, then you have to redo it. However, I did one yesterday, and production has a name, the external client app, and I used the same name on the sandbox, and it wouldn't allow me to create it.
Yeah.
Why?
System-wide, it's a name.
That's not system-wide, that's the network.
Yeah, completely. On all Salesforce boxes.
It's like the username. No?
Yeah, like namespace.
It's like the username, right? You can't have the same username on Salesforce worldwide.
The namespace
Yeah, that's,
is
well,
in
that's true,
the
but-
Salesforce org.
But this is just the, I mean, that's what I thought was the answer, but to me, it's all just within the system. Just the name of it. Whatever the package is, but it's sending it that name out.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I got some questions. I'm aware the time's only 3 minutes, so you can just short. So what business, can you give an example of business application where you use this? My second question is, when you were talking about the server and you were using your MacBook Pro, is that what the server is? It's just your MacBook Pro?
So server in this case would be, there would be two servers. One would be Salesforce as a system is a server, and Postman, where I use to send a request to Salesforce. So Salesforce and Postman are two servers. You know how we have like client server? So you're the client requesting to go onto a website. You type in the website URL, hit enter, then it sends a request, response comes back, and you can access this website. Similarly, Postman is connecting to Salesforce. So both of them are servers because they're both machines talking to each other, not a user trying to get. So the server client, there's no client here. They're both servers.
And my first question about a business application.
Yes, any. So wherever there are two machines talking to each other, that would be a business application. When you're talking to, let's say, you have an ERP system, Oracle, and you've got sales in Salesforce. Now you want the data to sync between the two systems, even if you have a middleware. That it only thing changes is Salesforce and the middleware becomes server-to-server interaction. That means machine-to-machine communication. So anywhere where you have two machines talking, that's your business use case for JWT.
Okay, so I remember years ago, Salesforce said, well, you can either, let's say the opportunity record, and you can either push the data into Salesforce or you can do it real time. In other words, access the data in the ERP system. Do you use this for both situations like that?
Yeah, because this is just an authentication method. This really doesn't mean that you get access to the data real time. For that, you might have to, work on, maybe you have to use MuleSoft, or you would have to work platform events. Those are pretty quick. But this is just who you are and what can you